Hey everyone, so after I finished up the last video, I realized there were a couple of things that I forgot. Well, one thing I forgot and then one thing I noticed basically once I had stopped the video, so here's a little quick thing. There were a couple of other transmission related items I wanted to make a note of. So first one is, so here on the TKO, I went with the Midshift kit. I did a video about that a little while ago. So one of the things with the Midshift kit, obviously shifter moves from back here to up here. You may notice that it looks like there's a piece of metal that got cut out, and that's because there was one. So the factory, the Mk4 comes with, has these cross braces in the transmission tunnel, which I think are a good idea. They add some rigidity, and that's a good thing. However, one of them goes from right over there to over here, and the midshifter, at least this Pro 50 midshifter, gets to where it is about halfway up the tube, and it needs about another half an inch or so of clearance, half an inch to an inch, for it to fit. I don't know if this is the case for all cars and all mid-shifted TKOs with a 302 or a 351, or maybe mine's just a little bit different from the others. Factory 5 is pretty consistent, so my guess is that they're all this way, or to some extent. But so I had to cut this brace out. I know that on the Coyote engines that have a TKO behind them, the midshifter is actually up here, and you end up having to cut out this forward brace and then weld it back in. So I cut the brace out. I am going to weld it back in, but I'm going to wait on doing that until I get further along in the build, specifically figuring out location and number of cup holders. I am planning on putting cup holders in the car, and there's a couple of different ways of doing it. I'm probably going to put some up front. I've seen some kits for those, and some people have done that, and it works well. But some people also do something back here. There's a lot of real estate available, so before I weld it back in, I want to make sure that I'm not going to put it in a spot where it's interfering with anything else. But basically, my plan at this point is just to weld it kind of halfway in between here, where it was, and this other brace, and then just bring it across here. So keep the rigidity and have the clearance. The other thing, and that I just realized I'm going to have to work on, is when you put a TKO in. So I'm looking at the tail housing here, if you can't fully tell. So here's the transmission mount, and normally you've got part of this tail housing that is cast down here if you have a different kind of transmission mount that runs longitudinally instead of transversely. That interferes with this cross member here, so you have to cut it off. And so I cut it off, but I did not cut it off quite enough. And if you look carefully, you can't really see, but it's just about touching down here on the cross member. And if I pull on the transmission up and down, I can actually hear it hitting. So I need to clearance that better. Otherwise, as I'm driving down the road, the transmission's going to hit, and it's going to drive me nuts. So I don't have to remove the transmission to do that. All that I'm going to need to do is just unbolt it, jack it up a little bit. I can support it from underneath, and then I can get my grinder in there to just grind away some more material. So if you're going to put a TKO in your Mk4, my recommendation would be to be generous with the amount of material that you remove in that area. So anyway, just a couple more tips for you from the build, and get another video soon. Thanks.